The second generation Subaru WRX has just been unveiled, but before we get a taste of that upcoming 2022 model, let us revisit the current fire-breathing Subaru WRX Sti and see if it has set the bar high for the upcoming model. Let's do this! Hello guys, I'm Reagan and welcome back to another car review. If you're new to my channel, I hope you click that subscribe button for your regular dose of Philippine automotive content. If you're my subscriber already, well, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show after you click that like button. Also, special thanks to Motor Image Pilipinas for lending us the Subaru WRX Sti to do this review. Now what we have here is the 2019 WRX Sti, which was sold locally until 2020. Now, it's no longer available in local dealerships because the second generation 2022 Subaru WRX is just around the corner at the time of this filming. Still, this WRX Sti had a retail price of 2,848,000 Philippine pesos when it was sold in local dealerships, so that should serve as a benchmark for the possible pricing of the 2022 model. Now, we're expecting that this 2022 Subaru WRX Sti should come in at a price level of around 3 million Philippine pesos or even a little bit more, which should put it at the same price as the Honda Civic Type R and the Ford Mustang V8. The Sti doesn't really deviate too much when it comes to looks from the more sedate WRX. Well, if you can call the WRX a sedate vehicle. The Sti gets the same sinister-looking front clip here and that gaping large hood scoop that feeds cool air into your intercooler. Now, we also get a full LED lighting system here. We've got LED DRLs, LED fog lights, and if you go down to the center of your front bumper, you have here a carbon fiber design on the center part of that front bumper. However, the Sti doesn't get any fog lights here, but to be honest guys, you don't really need fog lights unless, well, you're gonna take your Sti out on a nighttime rallycross. The side profile of the Sti shows off some go-fast goodies, but it also manages to preserve some of that sleeper look. We get a side mirror here that is power folding. It also has a silver side mirror housing and it also has LED turn signals. Now, if you look at the front and rear fenders, we get a subtle hint of a bulge here that tells us that this is no ordinary family sedan. We also have a pretty wide set of side skirts here, as well as some air vents here on the front fenders, which helps to extract heat from your brakes. Now, to differentiate the Sti from a regular WRX, we also have an Sti badge that can be found here on the front fender. Now, for your wheels and tires, this Sti gets 18-inch alloy wheels and it's wrapped in 245/40 R18 tires. Behind those wheels, you'll see that peeking there are a set of Brembo brakes. We've got cross-drilled rotors on all four corners, and we have a 6-piston Brembo brake setup in the front and a 2-pot setup at the back. Now, the brake calipers are colored in a nice yellow color, which makes it really pop out, and that tells everybody that this is a car that you don't want to mess with. Now, for the suspension duties, well, it's handled by an inverted MacPherson setup in the front and a double wishbone setup at the back. Now, despite being a rally car, this Sti that we have here has a pretty low ground clearance. The ground clearance of this thing is 135 millimeters, which is sleek and low, but trust me on this guys, this can still clear most speed bumps and steep parking ramps. This Sti is kinda on the subdued side because it doesn't really get that large wing. Now, Stis can be spec'd with or without a wing, but this particular media unit did not come with a wing. Still, we get that pink Sti badge right there, and we also have rear diffusers that also has an F1 style center light right there in the middle. We also have a set of functional quad exhaust pipes here, which I am pretty sure that most of you guys would want to hear the exhaust note of this STI, so here you go. Now that sounds a little bit underwhelming. I mean, for a vehicle with 296 horsepower on tap, that sounds kind of quiet. Wait. My bad, guys, my bad. We're on intelligent mode. Let me shift it to Sport Sharp and let's take a listen once again. There you go. Now that sounds so much better. Now when you pop open the trunk of this STI, you'll see that it is still quite the capable grocery getter. You get 12 cubic feet of trunk space here, which is good enough to fit 2 medium-sized luggage. And in case you need more cargo space, well, you could also always tumble the back seat, and that should expand your cargo space even further. Now try doing that in a 2-seater sports car. This STI is still powered by the older EJ25 motor that can be found in the previous generation STI. Now, take a good and hard look at this engine because it's time to say goodbye. Now, despite its age, guys, this turbocharged Boxer 4 motor can still put out 296 horsepower and 407 Newton meters of torque. Now, the power is sent to all 4 wheels via the only way that you should drive an STI. A 6-speed manual transmission. Now, during the past week that I've been driving this thing, I couldn't really help but really rev it up all the way to the red line, guys. And yeah, because of that, well, my fuel consumption is a little bit dismal. In heavy city traffic, well, I could only do as much as 5 kilometers per liter, but when it cleared up, well, I went up to as much as 7. On a highway run with a very light foot, and as if you're doing an economy run, the STI can do 11 kilometers per liter. But if you drive this thing in that way, well, it is such a huge waste. Now, let's move on to the more important figures for this STI, which is the performance figures. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour can be done in 5.2 seconds. Now, there are even reports that it can be done in 5 seconds flat. Now, to be able to do that in a sedan that can sit 5 passengers and their luggage, well, that is pretty awesome, guys. The cabin of the STI mixes performance and convenience quite well. We get leather bucket seats here, and we also have the STI logo on the headrest. Now, even the seat belts of the STI is colored red for good measure. That's pretty cool. Now the driver's seat also gets power adjustments, and when you go over to the steering wheel, you have here a nice leather wrap steering wheel with contrast red stitching. Now I love the size of this wheel. It's a performance wheel, and it also comes with a flat bottom. Now if you've been driving Subarus in the past, you will be quite used to the plethora of buttons that you get here on the steering wheel. Now one thing that I did notice though is that the wheel doesn't get any paddle shifters. The thing is, we don't need no paddle shifters in an STI because we got a 6-speed manual transmission, baby! Now, moving back to the steering wheel, it also adjusts for tilt, and it also telescopes, which is pretty much expected from a vehicle that costs almost 3 million pesos. And when you go over to your gauge cluster, we have here a standard analog layout. We've got an analog tag and an analog speedo, and we have a colored multi-information display in the middle. Now, I would love to see a center tachometer in the 2022 WRX Sti. Now, that would be pretty sweet. But as it is, the current layout, it's also quite serviceable. Now, when you move over to the top of your dashboard, you'll see another multi-information display there, pretty typical of these older Subarus, and it also shows you some more of your vehicle information. Now, I always love to put this on the boost gauge. That way I could just see like how much boost my turbo is generating. Now, when you move down from there, we also have here a smallish 7-inch touchscreen infotainment system that thankfully comes with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and a reverse camera. Oh, by the way, that multi-information display on the top of the dashboard, yeah, it also comes with an image of the front camera because the STI is now equipped with the front camera, which should help you, park this thing. Now, we also have a fully automatic dual zone climate control system here. And when you go down further, we have here the STI logo that lights up at night when you turn on your headlights. So that's pretty cool. Of course, we have here your 6-speed manual transmission, guys. This is really the only way that this STI has to be driven. And here's a pretty cool trick. You see, if you want to engage it in reverse, you gotta pull up on this circular thing at the bottom part of the shift knob, and that's when you go into 6th gear. Now, 6th gear, my bad. Reverse. That's when you go into reverse. Now, that is a pretty old school way of engaging reverse, guys, and I've seen that in some cars from the 80s and the 90s. Now from there you'd see that you have a manual handbrake that's conveniently located right beside the driver in case you want to do some four-wheel drifting action. Beside that handbrake, we have a knob that toggles your drive modes. You have intelligent mode, which is the normal mode, and I'm normally usually just in intelligent mode, guys, most of the time. We also have a sport mode here, which if you toggle it in sport mode, well, the STI truly comes alive, and yeah, your fuel bill also goes up. And when you toggle it in sport sharp, well, sport sharp, guys, has to come with a warning label. Use at your own risk. You see, in Sport Sharp, I mean, my goodness, this thing becomes an animal. The Sport Sharp should be used only on the track because that's only probably the safe venue where you could use Sport Sharp. So yeah, it should come with that warning label. Now, behind that knob, that drive mode knob, we have a couple of cup holders, which I will subject to my clean canteen test. So this is a Subaru Sti. It's a global model. I'm sure it fits. Yeah, see, easily it fits my clean canteen. Now when you look at the entire cabin layout and cabin materials used here, yeah, you could say that for a Subaru that's close to 3 million pesos, yeah, the cabin materials, we do get some soft touch plastics here and there, but it's kind of bare. It's kind of low rent for a Subaru. But that's the thing, the cabin materials really aren't the focus of this thing. It's just focus on performance. Now the good thing though, guys, is this Subaru is also equipped with a good level of safety kit. As you can see on your screen, we've got a good amount of safety features here that will keep you alive in case you lose control of this beast. Now, those safety bits that you're seeing, well, it's good enough to give this WRX Sti a 5-star rating in the ASEAN NCAP. Now, that's not so bad, guys. The back seat of the Sti feels like an afterthought and lacks any inspiration. It's a pretty spacious back seat, but it's still not as spacious as the other compact sedans available in the category. I'm 5'6", guys, and I get around 8 inches of knee room here. That's pretty decent, and I also get around 3 inches of headroom. You could put 3 average Asian adults here in the back seat, but it's best to limit it to 2 because you've got a pretty tall center tunnel right there in the middle. Better yet, guys, it's best to limit it to none because more passengers means more weight, and more weight means lesser performance. And speaking of performance, let's take this Sti out for a quick spin. Alright guys, so we're now driving the Subaru WRX Sti, and first up, this thing is still equipped with a hydraulic power assist assembly, and as such, well, this is like the purest steering feel that you can get in a performance car. You feel so connected and direct with the front wheels as you steer this thing. Now granted, the steering weight itself is a little bit on the heavy side, as expected from these hydraulic power assist systems. But yeah, I'd gladly take on that slightly heavier wheel for this kind of connection with the car. Now I expect the newer 2022 Subaru WRX and its Sti variant to already sport an electric power assist system. So yeah, that should take away some of that weight from the steering wheel, but also some of the feedback. Now, as I mentioned, I've been driving this thing regularly or daily for the past few days now. And yeah, when it comes to its driving character, well, the first and second gear loves to rev all the way up to the rev line. It quickly revs up to that. And yeah, it feels like, well, it feels like a 1990s sports car. Of all things. I mean, this is a 2019 model, but it feels like a car from the 90s. You've got quite a pretty heavy clutch. Not really that heavy, but it's heavier than my own Mazda MX-5 ND. It also has a hard brake pedal feel, and it kind of reminds me of the same driving character as the Mazda RX7 FD Bathurst that I also reviewed a while back. Now, you could daily drive this thing. I mean, I've driven this several days already, every day for the past few days, and I've driven it in EDSA traffic, in city driving, and going around the mountains and all that. And yeah, it's possible, it's doable to daily drive this thing, but it's going to be a workout every time you get behind the wheel. We have a term in Filipino for that. It's called tiis ganda. Okay, it's tiis ganda. Now, when it comes to the acceleration of this thing, the STI accelerates with brutal force. I mean, it only has 296 horsepower, but man, since this is quite an analog performance car, you feel everything while you're accelerating. It feels so raw, and once that turbo kicks in above 3,000 RPM, it feels like a punch in the gut. Now, I've driven the Mark V Toyota Supra. I've driven an Audi R8. I've even took a Ferrari 458 Italia out on a racetrack. But even if those three cars have more power than this WRX Sti, well, those three cars doesn't feel as brutal and as raw as this car does. I mean, yeah. This STI makes my Mazda MX-5 Miata ND feel like such an easy car to drive. And here's the thing, guys. All that raw feeling, that brutal acceleration I'm talking about, that's all done in intelligent mode. Put it in Sport Sharp, and my goodness, it's really a balls out true performance vehicle. I mean, Sport Sharp, as I mentioned, needs to come with a warning label, use at your own risk. I tried it on the open expressway. And yeah, I love how the steering ratio just sharpened up, the response just became quicker, and the suspension kind of tightened up a little bit, and that engine, wow, that boxer engine rumble, it's crazy. And yeah, driving it in Sport Sharp, you'd really feel that turbo kick in. Wow, yeah. Oh yeah, man, this this is really something else, baby. When you're driving this thing below 3,000 RPM, yeah, well, the engine feels kind of gutless. It feels like a perfectly normal four-door sedan. But when you take it up above 3,000 RPM and that turbo boost kicks in, woohoo! Woohoo! Yeah, baby! Now that's what I'm talking about. That's when the STI bares its teeth and shows you what sort of performance machine it truly is. Oh yeah! Woo! Oh yeah! I love this. Love it when the boost kicks in. Yeah, baby. And the handling. So, woo! I'm gonna miss this. God, I hope the new one is as good as this. Or even better. 400 horsepower. Yeah, but I hope it handles like this and it feels as connected as this. Now, when it comes to the ride quality and the suspension handling of this thing and the comfort, well, this is a performance car, so you don't expect it to be plush. In fact, yeah, nobody would accuse this of being plush. The ride is stiff, just like how a proper performance car should feel like. Now, I drive a Mazda MX-5 ND that's been lowered on coilovers, so I'm kind of used to a stiff ride, and this ride is actually quite acceptable for me. It's not really that bad, in fact, and yeah, it's, for the amount of performance that you're getting in this thing when you're taking it out canyon carving or on the track, yeah, that stiff ride is a fairly good compromise. Now, another thing that I really love about this STI is that Boxer 4 rumble. You could hear it inside the cabin, and I don't believe that it's being piped in from the engine, because yeah, you could also hear it from outside. So I love that that engine note gives this STI such a distinct character to it. Yep. Overall, guys, this WRX Sti is one of the last few true analog performance cars that are, well, available relatively new nowadays. One other suspect is like the Nissan 370Z, which is also about to be replaced. Now, this Sti requires some true driver skill to pilot it properly on the edge and at speed. And yeah, if you feel that your driving skill is not up to par, well, guys, stay away from Sport Sharp. Just stick with intelligent mode or sport mode, and you'd do fine. You would do perfectly fine. This STI is a throwback to a time when performance cars can only be driven at the edge by drivers with the proper skill. It will reward you when you know what you're doing and punish you if your skills don't measure up. Now, it's not a convenient performance car, and it makes zero apologies for it. Now, this current STI has set the bar pretty high, so I'm quite excited to see what the next generation WRX Sti will bring to the table. From what I've heard, it can make as much as 400 horsepower. Now, that's all well and good, guys. So if you're waiting for the next generation WRX Sti to come in, well, you better sharpen your driving skills by heading over to the racetrack, because if this current Sti is any indicator, you're gonna need it. Thanks for watching.